Hi there, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. It is Tuesday, and that can only mean that the team lists are out, and we are here to go through them. As ever, Luke Jobson is here to help me go through all the team lists, give our tips, and give you some news as well on some of the squads. How are you going, mate?
Mate, I couldn't be better for a Tuesday in lockdown. We're loving it. If you can read through my lies, well done. You have the brains of a 3-year-old. But yeah, look, we're surviving. It's Team List Tuesday. There's been a ton of news coming out. It's been wild, but we're good. How are you, mate?
I am very good, mate. There's some big names back this week, some interesting matchups. So I think we'll jump straight into it with the Roosters versus the Storm. So as for the Roosters, only one change to their squad. Say straight swap around with Verrills into the 9 shirt and Kieran dropping to the bench, and he'll be used as the utility. As for the Storm, they welcome back a whole host of stars. For a start, both of the Bromwich brothers are back. They'll be tearing it up. Jessie in the 8, Kenny in the 12 shirt, Dale Finucane in the 13. There is no Harry Grant this week, so Booth comes into the 14, and then their bench is made up of Kamikamica, Lewis and Penny, and of course the aforementioned Booth. Christian Welsh in the prop. I mean, how many of these stars are going to be still feeling the effects of Origin 2 is really the big question here, and how do they hold up coming into this game?
I think we both know the answer. All of them at one point or another this week will be feeling a bit under the weather as a result of State of Origin. Where it's a Thursday night game, coaches may not risk them. Yeah, that's a very strong possibility. It's Thursday night at Newcastle, so they not only have to fly back into Sydney, but they've got the 2-hour drive up. I expect most of them to back up. I do expect most to back up. The one that might be iffy, I would say, is Angus Crichton. But I think for the most part, they all back up. Tedesco will absolutely back up against a Storm side that is looking to put themselves back up to that top spot. You know, Nico Hines has been superb out the back there for the Storm. Jerome Hughes has been brilliant. Brandon Smith is first choice hooker at 14 other clubs at the moment, and we'll relegate the second choice when Harry Grant is back, but he's doing a superb job. He's a try-scoring machine. Mate, this is going to be a cracking game to start. It's a shame that it's straight after Origin and we might lose a couple of stars, but you know what? We'll take it. Looking at potential matchups here, I think the big one obviously is the battle of the halves. You've got a halves pairing of Lockie Lamb and Sam Walker, who combined, I think, have about 20 NRL games. If that, you compare that to Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. They are, the Queensland 6 and the New Zealand 7. It's a big test for Lamb and Walker against some definitely more experienced opponents. Tedesco and Hines, you obviously have to point that one out. The forward battle is going to be great. Kafusi has a point to prove. He played like dog crap in Origin. Don't know how he got picked again, but he has a point to prove at club level against Crichton and Tupanua, assuming Crichton plays. The Bromwich boys coming back, that's a big in, especially with Nelson Asofa-Solomona out suspended for the Storm. Jesse slots straight back in. Kamikamica, as you mentioned. Matt, back to the bench. Tough game. Real tough game to pick first up. You can absolutely make a case for either side. You can flick a coin. I'm going to flip the coin and say Storm 1-12. The Storm are the favourites and stark favourites if you look at the odds on Sportsbet, about 9 o'clock here in Sydney at the moment. But it's definitely going to be tighter than I think what the line is at the moment. Line's currently at 10.5. I do think the Storm win. But if you go Storm 1-12 with a Roosters on the line, currently at 10.5, I think that's pretty much where I'm at. I don't know. Go potentially for an anytime try scorer. The obvious one for me would be in a losing side, and that would be Daniel Tupou going up against George Jennings, who is not the greatest of of leapers. Tupou currently paying $1.91, so not a whole bunch of value. But if you throw those three together, Storm 1 to 12, Roosters to cover the line at 10.5, and Daniel Tupou to score $6.50. If you look for a Storm try scorer, I mean, he's on a hot streak. Brandon Smith is at $2.50. He's looking superb. If you want to throw that in at $17.25, you can. But Melbourne 1 to 12 and Tupou anytime, I think, is where I'm leaning at here.
Okay. I agree with you on Storm, but I'm going to go Storm 13+. I'm going to say Roosters under 16.5 team points. And I'm going to say back the under for this game. I mean, going back to the last two, 24 points in the last one, 30 points in the previous. So, the Storm winning the last two, 20 points to 4 and then 24 points to 6. It's just the Storm are very sound defensively. They don't tend to leak points. The Roosters, as you mentioned, the inexperience in the halves, they're coming up against players that have got a bit of a point to prove. Nico Hines is desperately trying to fend off Ryan Pappenhausen, who's, granted still having concussion issues. Brandon Smith got a point to prove, trying to keep Harry Grant out of the squad. Munster got a point to prove after disappointing at Origin level and, after talking such a big game about how he was going to keep the Penrith boys quiet for the entire game and how, Tom Trbojevic was a marked man, just wrote a check with his mouth that his ass couldn't cash. And unfortunately now he's got a little bit of a toning to do at club level. So I think that they'll have a big game. So yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to back the Storm 13+ for this one. I think it's going to be a decent margin, but I can't see there being a lot of points in this one. So Storm 13+, Roosters under 16.5 team points, and then back the under on that as well for the match total.
$4.60 if you throw just the Storm 13+ and the under 46.5. It is already down from 48.5. If you add the Roosters under 16.5, it adds nothing to it. So if you want to throw that in as a single, currently paying $2.07 on Sportsbet, by all means, but don't throw it in the multi unless you're trying to get money back.
Okay. With that, then, we'll go to the next game. It is the Warriors taking on the Dragons, and the Warriors have made a fair amount of changes, to be fair. Tuivasa Sheck is back to fullback after Reece Walsh pulled out of Origin with a leg injury. Watene Zelezniak is to debut on the wing. Pompey and Montoya will be your centres, with Corsi in the 5. Of course, Ewan Aitken is currently in isolation after he boarded a flight in which a cabin crew member tested positive for COVID. Him and Josh Curran are the two. Chad Townsend is back in a Warriors shirt and he will be wearing the number 7. Murdoch Masilla is back in the 12. Evans off the bench into a prop. Egan in the 9. Tavonga relegated to the bench. And then Sirenen is also featured on the bench as well. So quite a few changes for the Warriors, but they have got some size in there. Worthwhile mentioning Elise Katoa in that lineup as well. He's back and he's going to be looking dangerous. As for the Dragons, very limited amounts of changes. They still line up relatively similar as they would in the backs. The only change in their backs is there is no Ravalawa this week. So Beale will drop to the wing and Bird will come out of the second row into the centre. DeBellin will start, and then most of their changes are on the bench, with Maguire, Burns, Alvaro and Fue Mayono coming in to make up the Dragons bench.
Yeah, another tough one to pick, but not for the same reasons as the Storm and the Dragons. This game doesn't scream quality to me, but it absolutely screams quantity. This Dragons defense, at the best of times, is a solid top 8 defense. At its worst, it leaks like who knows what. Add whatever adage you want into there. The Warriors attack, it's the same. At its best, it is one of the most electric attacks in the competition. At its worst, it clunks like a steel ship. It's hard to see how this one goes. The addition of Townsend, I think, means that Nikorima can play more of a running game like he prefers. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck at the back, I think, provides a little bit more confidence, a little bit more fluidity, more knowledge of Nickareem's game as opposed to Walsh, who, don't get me wrong, is a superb player, but again, 7 NRL games, still trying to find his mark and get the fluidity of the attack. Fanua Blake, Kane Evans, I don't want those two running at me to start, especially when you have Bunty Afoa, Leeson Armau, and Jazz Tavanga coming off the bench. That's scary. I would have brown streaks down my legs if I had those 5 running at me at any given time. The move of Tohu Harris into 13, I think, is good. I think that's his spot. I love Josh Curran as a player. Think he's great. Don't really know if he's a lock. And, I mean, even when you watch Warriors games, he plays lock for about 20 minutes. And as soon as someone like a Kane Evans comes on or goes off, depending on whether he starts or is on the bench, he then goes to second row and Harris comes into the middle anyways. So it makes more sense for Harris just to be there. When Curran comes back, he'll go back to the 11, I would imagine, and Katoa would push Murdoch Nasilla to the bench, but I'm not overly sure. Matt Duffy back for the Dragons is big. He is their one and only attacking spark in this side. Tyrell Sloan looked superb last week. He was brilliant. But I'm worried that he's at the Dragons. I'm really worried because he's at the Dragons. But Duffy at least brings the pressure off of Ben Hunt and Corey Norman to try and create something. It's not now just those two. They at least can lean on Duffy as well. In terms of a tip, Warriors 1-12. If you're looking to play a margin, the line at 2.5, I'd say the Warriors get that. I just think they're gonna run rings around the Dragons. I don't know if it's going to be fluid, and as a result, that's why I'm going 1-12 because I think Jack Bird's going to try and go over on Adam Pompey, and Ramsey will hopefully leap up over Edward Cossey because Ramsey is one of my anytime try scorer bets. If you want to look at another one. On the Warriors side, you could make a big shout for Witeni Zalesniak back playing in New Zealand, making his club debut. It's his nation that he plays for nationally. He wants to start off well over there. You could also make a shout for Chad Townsend at a price purely because he's back where he started his career. Now, he and Sean Johnson were the combination for a year and a half, and it was a great combination. He's currently paying $4.50 on Sportsbet. It's a spec at a price, but New Zealand Warriors, the line's 2.5. I'm going with that. And I will go with Witeni Zalesniak anytime, Cody Ramsey anytime. Throw him into a multi as our friends at Sportsbet load. They don't want to tell me. I would think that's about an $8 multi.
Okay. I am going to controversially back the Dragons here. I'm going to go 1-12. And my reasoning for this is you have way too many unfamiliar pairings in the backs. Witeni Zalesniak and Pompey have never played a game together. They don't know how they're going to gel as a wing centre pairing. That immediately screams danger for me. Montoya and Corsi. Montoya isn't naturally a centre. He's a winger more than anything. And Corsi's going to be basically put outside him to shield him. So, again, unfamiliar. Corsi's only got a handful of NRL games under his belt. Nickareema and Townsend. Townsend will come in as the dominant playmaker. Nickareema will go for the runs, and they'll try and basically open them up that way. It's just a case of how much time have these guys had to gel? How much time have they had to build that cohesion and that attacking? You know, as you mentioned, the fluidity in attack is very much key. And I just worry that the Warriors have got too many changes in there for it to be as fluid. And you know what? The Warriors are a team that love to catch me out, love to turn up on a game where I've tipped them to have a bad one. But I don't necessarily think that this will be a bad game. I mean, you go to the history books on this one. last game between these two, 20 points to 14 in favour of the Warriors. The game before that, 30th of May 2020, 18-0 in favour of the Warriors. It's a tight game. It's always a tight game when these two play. Again, form-wise, Warriors 1 in their last 5, Dragons 2 in their last 5. They're both teams that are not performing at their best, and they're teams that are basically just trying to come up and find a little bit of form towards the end of the season now and try and make that push for the 8. And I just think, for whatever reason, I think the Dragons have got this one. So I'm going to say Dragons 1-12. Again, back the under on this one. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in it. I think it could be potentially a little bit of a scrappy game. As we mentioned, players that aren't used to each other don't have that natural game playing chemistry. There's a chance for a bit of a misfire on some passes. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw an interception try in here. Somebody throws a pass and the runner's just in the wrong spot. Player picks it off and goes. If I was going to say that there's a player that does that, I'd probably, like you, I'd say that is probably Cody Ramsey. But I'm going to go the other side. I'm going to go. In fact, no, I'm going to go with his centre. I'm going to back Braden Williami for a try here. He comes up against Montoya and Corsi. Williami has got a lot. He plays second row when playing internationally for Fiji. He's a compact, very strong player. Got a great fend on him. Getting close to the line, I reckon that he manages to push away and go through. So, Dragons 1-12, back the under, and Williami anytime try scorer for me.
I'm licking my lips at that. That's nice. That's really nice odds. Dragons 1-12. The under currently at 50.5. Williami anytime try scorer $17.
We always bring the value. And speaking of games that will no doubt be value for money, it is the Panthers versus the Eels, and it's a very, very different looking Panthers side. So for a start, Charlie Staines is your fullback this week. Brent Naden will be returning for the Panthers. He will slot in on the wing with Crichton as his centre. Tyrone May in the 4 shirt, Toto outside him. Matt Burton is now your 6 with Jerome Luai in the 7. Leota, Coruscant, Fisher Harris. Kickout is back. Capewell as well is making the quick turnaround from Origin, as well as Isaiah Yeo. And then the bench is pretty much unchanged with Kenny and Sorensen, but Leniu and Liam Martin will also be in the 17 shirt. So the Eels, big change is, of course, the inclusion of Micah Sevo. He's back from suspension, so no Sean Russell this week. He drops out. Interesting to see that Hayes Dunster is still retaining his spot, as is Wonga Blake. And as for the bench, it is Nia Curry, Lane, Kafusi, and Cartwright. Other than that, the Eels are unchanged from the Eels side that we are very, very used to seeing, with that very strong and very dominant forward pack.
Para 13 plus. Para 13 plus. Because there's no Cleary, because there's no Dylan Edwards, they lose a lot of structure out of that spine. Cleary is a game changer. We saw that in Origin. A fantastic game manager, but someone who can break the line. Now, obviously, Luai and Burton both can do that, but they haven't played together as a halves combination. Not for a very long time, at least. Now, Burton and Staines at 6-1 does worry me. It does a little bit, because they have that sort of combination that they played out in country football. But, and this is the big but, that does not make up for the absence of Nathan Cleary. Nathan Cleary is the game's number 1 halfback, arguably one of the best, if not the best player in the world behind Tom Trbojevic at the moment. And the Panthers lose a lot because he's not there. Tyrone May is too slow. I'm saying all this now about Tyrone May, knowing he very well could show Wonga Blake up and just run rings around him. But Tyrone May has proved this year that he's not an overly top-notch first-grade player, not like he was a couple of years ago pre-sex tape scandal. He in the centres, especially if he's on the same side as Micah Sevo and Tommy Opacek, he could be in a little bit of trouble. Because I have no doubt that they'll send Sivo and Opacek at him, but you'll also have the second rowers running that angle straight towards him. And May is not a very good defender. Brent Naden hasn't played a game of NRL all year. He's been great in reserve grade, but we know that this is a different step up. It is a big step up, and I don't know how he's been going outside of the stats. He could be running for 200 meters, but he also could be making 5 errors. I don't know. Bringing back Kikau is big. It is huge. Having him alongside Capewell in the second round, Liam Martin coming off the bench is big. It's going to be a tough forward battle. Leota and Fisher Harris against Campbell Gillard, the former Panther, and Junior Paulo. Madison and Papali'i against Kikau and Capewell. Brown v Yo, Lussick v Coruscant. And then obviously the bench battle of Nia Corey, who is very quickly becoming Mr. Fix-It, alongside Sean Lane, Kafusi, and Cartwright against Kenny Sorensen, Lenny, and Martin. I'm still going Para 13+. I'm going with my gut here. I do think Parramatta can go back-to-back in terms of games at Bluebet Stadium or Panther Stadium, whatever you want to call it, and take down the Panthers on their home turf. I do think it happens. Unfortunately, I also think Jerome Luai scores a try. Luai will slot in and try to play that Cleary role. It won't be as good. It won't be as crisp, but Luai will use that step and get around some tight forwards later on. The other one I'm going to go with on an anytime try scorer is Clint Gutherson. If he gets wrapped around the back and targets some center wing combinations that haven't played together, May and or Naden and Crichton, or Crichton Top or May Naden, however they want to line it up, they haven't played together at all this year. Not in those positions. The combinations aren't great. It's what we were saying with Dunster and Blake and Opacek and Ferguson, Sivo, Russell, that whole turnstile that's been Parramatta's backline recently. These combinations aren't set in stone. They haven't had a lot of time to work on it. They wouldn't have thought that this was going to happen because we weren't thinking Cleary was going to be gone. So they've got this week to work on it, but it's still going to be up in the air. Gutho will go wrapping around the back, dummy out wide and dart through. Also wouldn't be surprised if Dunster goes over. Parramatta 13+, Jerome Luai, Clinton Gutherson anytime. That's my bet.
Okay. See, I do worry about this one just because, Panthers versus Eels is always a tight one. These two teams both show up. It's always an absolute... It's just a war. Every time it's a close run game. But then again, you usually have both teams not running on their reserves like this. And I think Opacek, for me, is the guy that's gonna break the line. As you mentioned, you got Mato. That is not a big edge. Two relatively small players with a semi-trailer that is Micah Sivo just parked out there. They're going to be aware that he's there, and they're going to try and bundle him into touch wherever they can and get an early win over him. I think Opacek just takes the ball to the line, shows it to Sivo, and goes himself. I think Mayer's going to take that dummy more often than not because, two small men are as good as one big man, and Micah Sivo is not a small human being, especially when he wraps the ball up like it's just like it's a ping pong ball in one hand and takes off down the wing. So I reckon Opacek's going to go through. I'd be tempted to double up and say Sivo gets one as well, because I tell you what, if Opacek sells that dummy once and goes to himself, they're going to be aware that it's there, and then second time around, just pop it to Sivo and watch him go over the top of Toto. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go Sivo and Opacek anytime. I'm just going to say Parramatta on the line. I'm not going to go any margin on this one, just because I am very wary of the fact that, yes, the Panthers are missing their dominant half, they're missing their star player, and they're missing their standard fullback as well. It wouldn't surprise me if the Panthers found a way to hang in this one and make it a tighter run affair than the paper would have us believe. But looking at the team, I'm surprised that Staines is the choice for fullback there. Crichton's played more fullback than Staines. I can get that you maybe don't want a Staines-Naden combination on the wing, on your edge. Maybe even drop Naden at fullback and see how he goes there. But, that's what the Panthers are going with. We'll have to see how Charlie does at fullback. You do lose a little bit of attacking threat with him there because Staines is a finisher and he's a very good finisher. But in terms of a returning runner, he's not renowned for the meters that he makes. He's a relatively slender fullback in comparison to the fullbacks that you've got doing the rounds of the NRL at the minute. So you potentially lose a lot of meters made there. So I'm going to go Eels on the line for this one, just with very, very little confidence, to be honest.
If you go Eels on the line, they're plus 5.5. If you go head-to-head, they're currently $2.50. If you go with Matty on the line and not head-to-head, with Sevo and Opachik, it's $8.25. If you go Parramatta head-to-head, it's $9.50. If you have some cojones and go Para 13 plus, Gutherson and Luai anytime, you are getting the chef's kiss of $63.50 at the moment. Now, if Sportsbet give you the or whoever you're with, and obviously gamble responsibly, we got to say that. But if whoever you're throwing a tip on with gives you three legs, one down, get your money back at $63.50, Matthew, I'm calling that some value.
You're not wrong. And with that, then we will go to the Bulldogs versus the Seagulls, and the Bulldogs have made a plethora of changes. Meaney will still be your fullback, despite the fact that Corey Allen is back from injury. He will occupy the number 2 shirt on the wing. Manu is in to the 4. He will partner Katoa on the wing. Kyle Flanagan is back in a dog shirt. Who'd have thunk it? He'll be partnering Avarillo in the halves, with Heverington, Marshall King, and Thompson as your front line, Topane, Dorey as your second rowers, Jackson your 13. And then number 14, Bayonde Odo will make it step up and take to the field for the first time. Stimson in the 15, Siu Manafanai and Patolo are in for the Bulldogs as well. As for the Sea Eagles, the only change they make is Pepe is into the 13 for the injured Jake Trbojevic, and DeLuise will come into the 16 shirt to replace Kepi as he's coming from the bench to fill that hole. Walker, Ben Trbojevic, DeLuise, and Sipley are your bench, and then it is just your standard Sea Eagles side. I think the big question is here: do the Sea Eagles hit 50 again?
Yes.
Okay, next game.
I'm sorry, but come on. Look how good they've been the last couple of days. Oh, last couple of weeks. They've been lights out. What did we say it was? 50 in their last 3 for Manly. It's been
3 of their last 5. They've managed to hit 50 points.
This Bulldogs team's not going to stop that, are they? Surely not. I'm going to be there at the game working it. So, I'll see firsthand, but surely not. Really, I don't think it's going to happen. Trbojevic is going to have another field day. He's an easy captain choice if you're playing Super Coach. He's already said he wants to back up and will back up barring any injury during the week. I want to... For those who watched the Melbourne Storm Tigers preview a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to do the same thing. Anytime try score. Manly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And if they play, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And I was pretty damn close on that too. The Dogs probably do get over. They probably do get over, and they probably go through. It probably end up being someone like a Nick Meaney or a Jake Avarillo. Avarillo has been one of their best, and so was Meaney. But Meaney, he's got a point to prove now. He's signed for Melbourne for next year and the year after. He's got to prove that he can play against these top teams when things aren't going his way. So, he's probably one that does dart over. If you want, I say value, if you want someone on the Manly side over $2 that's going to score, Brad Parker, a great shout at $2.20 up against a very inexperienced backline. Same could be said for Carl Lawton at $3.30. He's having a bit of a renaissance. since he's started playing for Manly. Aloka R2 at $3.60, also a shout. Croker at $4 is another shout, darting over from dummy half. He's had probably his best year in the NRL so far this year. I'm not going to suggest multis because I don't think there's any value in here. Manly are paying 13 plus for $1.36. If you want to go for a first try scorer, I'd get a value there. Tom Trbojevic at $7 is my obvious shout. Brad Parker at $14, again, another great shout. Again, it depends on whether they decide to attack short and go into the ruck or whether they play expansive and use Tommy Turbo out the back. You could maybe make a shout because they're going to be focusing on Tom Trbojevic out the back. You could absolutely make a shout for Daly Cherry Evans or Kieran Foran, first try scorer and anytime try scorer. Daly $18, $4.21. But I'm giving you suggestions here. I'm not giving you actual tips. Manly 13 plus. I think I've just analysed the game very nicely there.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on Manly 13 plus. I'm going to say take the over on this one. And if you're going to pick an anytime try scorer, I think just if you're going to go search value at all, maybe Corey Allen gets over for the Dogs. I think if anyone's going to sneak over, I think it's maybe they'll just work that edge. Hopewati and Allen, a bit of experience between them. Maybe they can craft something. So I'm going to say that Corey Allen would be my pick for an anytime try scorer from the Dogs. No value for me going with anyone in the Sea Eagles, to be honest. Okay.
All right.
Well, I think we will move from that one there, and we will go to a slightly closer fixture in the Raiders versus the Titans. The big inclusion, of course, for the Raiders is in the number 3 shirt. Jared Croker is back. He will be filling in his favoured 3 shirt. As for the Raiders, no real changes from there. You've still got Simonson, Valemir, Chris Rapana as your backline. White and Williams are your halves. Papali'i will back up from Origin. Hodgson is retaining his 9 shirt and has pushed Starling back to the 14 for yet another week with Denars Louis as the other prop. Harawira Nara, Whitehead and Sutton are the rest of your forwards with Gula, Soliola and Tarpanay on the bench. As for the Titans, they welcome back AJ Brimson. He will be back in the 1 shirt, and Philip Sammy is back in the 2 as well. Fasu Malaawi, I'll get there eventually. Jesus. Worth a few points on Scrabble, that one. He will be in the prop with Peachy, moved from the 14 into the 13 as injury cover. Proctor is back in the 11 shirt with David Fafita in the 12. Lissoni, Fotuaker and Jolliffe are the remainder of your bench with Firma coming in as the 14. Interesting matchup, this one. I think that the Titans edge this, definitely. The Raiders have shown signs of improvement. Just not enough signs of improvement for me to think that they get up over a Titans side who are currently being labelled a bit of a disappointment this year. I know that Titans fans were very, very excited by the prospect of this season with their recruitment and how well that they've done in that respect and the big names that they got in. And just right now, they just aren't delivering. I mean, they currently sit 13th on the ladder. They're not delivering for the big money that some of their stars are on. And I think that some of their stars know this. And I'm predicting that they probably turn up and have a big game, especially into this final stretch of the season now, because they've not got long to correct their season and it's getting slowly further away from them.
It is a tough one to pick in the nation's capital. There's no doubting that. It's a big one for me to see Peachy there at the 13. He's been electric off the bench for the Titans. And it's hard to see him playing more than 50 minutes, though. He would play 60 off the bench when it was him and the 14 and Clark with Fasul Malawi. There you go. I've clapped myself and then I can't say the damn name either. So that'll be one for the blooper reel. Tino going to prop is interesting because Maui Fodawaker is probably a better prop than Tino. But, we'll see how it goes. They've got 3 props on there in Mo, Jamin Jolliffe, and Sam Lasani, who's back for the first time since round 7. Firma is a bit of a Mr. Fix-It, can play second row, can play center, begrudgingly will play wing. I'm leaning towards the Raiders here on a 1-12. Croker back is good, but it's not. It's good for the goal kicking, but Croker is not the best of defenders, and he's got a couple of strong bodies up against him. It's been a while since he's played, but I think he's the left side for the Raiders, which means it's the right side attack for the Titans. So I believe that is Proctor and Kelly. Don't quote me. I'm trying to picture
Herbert I think it's Herbert and Thompson on that edge in the 4-5.
Okay. So you got Proctor, Herbert, and Thompson. Okay, yeah, that would make sense. Well, I'd rather Thompson over bloody Marzu. I'd rather Thompson over Marzu if I was Jared Croker. But Herbert, I think, goes over for a try. Croker, first game back in a very long time, hasn't played reserve grade, hasn't had the chance to play any sort of football for a while, and Herbert's just a strong running player. He'll go over. For the Raiders, I've said they're going to win, so I probably should tip a Raiders try scorer. Harawira Naira is in some serious form, some serious try scoring form, but just some game form as well. You could easily make a case for him. I think you could also make a case for someone like a Seb Chris or a Bailey Simonson. There's a trend here this week. I'm going with a lot of the backs, but Simonson has looked very good at fullback. The 2 games that he's played there, the Titans do struggle with shifting and sliding on the defensive line. Simonson could very well block play it out the back and just dart through, or he could lob up in the middle as support. You could also make a strong case for Seb Chris just barreling over Brian Kelly. He's going to have David Fafita as somewhat of a bodyguard for him there, but this is a Fafita who is very good at club level. He's coming back with a point to prove, but I think because he'll have a point to prove, he'll tire out towards the back end. And that's where Seb Chris goes. So, I mean, if you want, you could say Raiders 1-12, Seb Chris, anytime try scorer, or you can go to score a try second half, and Patrick Herbert.
Okay. I'm going to go Titans for this one. The Titans this season, I mean, you even look at their last 5, they are very, very guilty of losing games that they should be winning and basically coming up narrowly short against teams that realistically should be drumming them based on where they are in the table. I mean, you got that 35-34 against the Roosters, 20 points to 14 against the Storm. But then you look at 56-24 against the Sea Eagles, 38-10 loss against the Sharks, and a 30 points to 20 win over the Bulldogs. It's grim reading for Titans fans, but I think this week that they find something to cheer about. So I'm gonna go for 3 Titans try scorers here. I'm gonna go Brimson, Herbert, and Fafita, and I'm gonna say Titans 1-12. I just think that Fafita, as he said, very good at club level, didn't really do much at Origin. Going to come in, going to have a big game. He started the season absolutely electric, has tailed off a little bit. As for Brimson, I think that there's a chance that he manages to open up a gap and go through himself. And Herbert, very much similar thinking to yourself, just Herbert versus Croker. Herbert's going to plough over the top of him. So that's where I go with that, and Titans 1-12, just because I think if the Titans do win this, it's going to be a narrow margin. It's not going to be a Titans blowout.
Well, that helps your odds, my friend. If you go to the 3 anytime try scorers, it was 24-25. You add the Titans 1-12, it goes to a very, Mwah. Chef's kiss, solid $70. I will point that one out. If you go with my Raiders 1-12 with Seb, Chris in the second half, and who did I say? Paddy Herbert. Let me see if I can find this second half try scorer market. Score a try second half. Here we go. If you go Raiders 1-12 and Pat Herbert anytime, that itself is $11.50. Add Seb Chris into the second half and $53. Again, like that. These aren't unrealistic bets either, if we're being completely honest. We put some shocking ones up. Don't get me wrong. Just look at Matthew's one from Sunday night. But these are 3 legs that could very well get up, or 4 legs in Matt's case that could very well get up. So, again, gamble responsibly, but $5, a cup of coffee, and it's a shit. That's all I'm saying.
It is, and then we will get to our latest tricky game. It will be the Knights versus the Cowboys.
The Knights.
The Knights because they're getting nilled. I've really struggled with this one. I've gone back and forth as to which way I think this one's going to go. Multiple occasions. I mean, the Cowboys, they've been better in recent weeks. A 26-24 loss. Yes, you disregard the 50 points to 18 loss against the Seagulls, but 29-28 win over the Warriors, a 36-20 win over the Knights not so long ago as well. So it's going to be a tight one as this. I really, really can't pick a winner. If I really push to, I'm going to say that the Knights win this one with very, very limited amounts of confidence. I just think that the Cowboys, again, are still figuring out the whole Drinkwater Naden thing. The Knights, they've got Ponga back. Potentially, if he holds up, how many times have we seen him named? And then all of a sudden it's a case of, well, actually, he's not going to run. You've got that combination of Young and Mann on the edge again, which doesn't fill me with the greatest amount of confidence. But they've changed up their front row a little bit as well. So Fitzgibbons swapped sides. Barnett's out of the 13 into the 11. And Sue will be in the 13. You've still got the multi-tool of Connor Watson coming in, doing his bit. I mean, as for the Cowboys, no changes. They're the same side that have not really fulfilled expectations for this season. I mean, they are currently sitting at 9th in the table. They are there or thereabouts and still very much in the conversations for the end of the year. But they've just not been as good as they could be for a team that's got like Val Holmes, the highly touted Tabuai Fido, Drinkwater, Naden, Hess, Taumalolo. Granville. You go back to the year that they beat Brisbane in the grand final. Jake Granville was one of their absolute standout players that entire season, that entire campaign. And he's just seemed to have been missing for the last year or two. And that's allowed Reece Robson to really come in and take that spot from him. On the other side, you got Braley, who's, really stepped up in the last few weeks. You've seen him put on that try-saver just 2 weeks ago. Just really stepping up and really being a leader and steering the Knights around the park. And when the Knights have got the big bodies that they do, the Saifiti brothers, Clemmer, King, that's what they need. They need someone to come in and give that direction, and Braley does a good job of dictating that at a dummy half. So, yeah, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with the Knights on this one. I think that they edge it 1-12, and I expect it to be a low-scoring game. So back the under on this. That's literally all the tips I can give on this one. I'm so indecisive on it.
So I won't put this one in sports bet and figure out the multi then. Yeah. This one's got me thinking. This one's definitely got me thinking. I don't like Kurt Mann in the center. I don't. I'd much rather see Brodie Jones there and Kurt Mann not there. But there's a reason why we're not coaches. If I can't even say if Ponga play. I'm going to go Cowboys.
Okay.
There's no real reasoning that Knights have the better forward pack outside of Taumalolo. But I'm just leaning towards the Cowboys. That's more a gut feel than anything. You've got more confidence in your tip than I do, mate. And you sound like you have -3 on a scale of 1 to 10. So, yeah, I'm struggling on this one. Clifford has looked good. I'll give you that. Clifford has looked better as a Knight than he did as a Cowboy. And Deden's looked better as a Cowboy as he did a Bronco. Not that that's that hard. Holmes will want to make amends for a very quiet performance on Sunday night, as will Felt. Felt had a try essentially stripped away from him by Brian Toto. Curse you, Kyle, and your bloody stripped away tries. You cost me a multi. But you could almost argue that this could be a golden point game. I can't pick it. I really can't. I don't know if there is a golden point market, to be completely honest. I haven't seen one of those in a while, or an extra time market. I'm trying to very quickly scroll through, but I don't actually see one. So I don't think there is a golden point or an extra time market anymore. Will there be extra time? $23 for yes. Look, I'm not going to try and tell someone to put money on that, because that for the most part is donating money. I'd rather you please, if you're gonna put money on that, give it to charity, give it to like Beyond Blue or JDRF or something like that. But yeah, it's not a bad shout. Yeah, Cowboys 1 to 12. Anytime try scorers. Holmes at 225 probably screams a little bit of value for me. Taumalolo, if he goes straight at Watson at close range, he goes over at 450. That's a good shout for the Knights. I could almost make an argument for Dominic Young, recently announced as part of the Jamaican side. He just sticks out for me as someone who I think will go over again. Like, there's no real confidence. You don't have to take the tips that we give, by the way, just so you know. But if you take them, that's what we're giving you on this one. It's impossible for me to really give any confidence in my tips on this.
Yeah. Myself, I'm exactly the same. I'm in the same boat. So I think that we don't poke the hornet's nest on this one. I think that we go to the next one. A little easier to call for me. It is the Broncos versus the Sharks, and a host of changes and some surprising ones for Broncos fans. Tessie New will keep his one shirt despite the fact that Jermaine Isako is named. He will play on the wing. Herbie Farnworth will be his centre. There will be a welcome return for Katoni Staggs as well as Corey Oates, so there will be no Xavier Coates this week. He's not made the turnaround from Origin, and he's not made the Broncos side. Gamble and Croft will be your 6 and 7. Then it's Lodge, Turpin, Haas as your front row. Glenn is in the 11 shirt, and Rabati is in for the suspended Tavita Pangai Jr. Flagler in the 13. And then a name we've not seen for a little while on a Broncos team list, Corey Pakes is in the 14 shirt. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to use him, so it's going to be interesting to see. And then it's Kobe Hetherington, Palacia, and then, of all people, Jesse Arthurs is your 17. That confuses the life out of me. I can't even front on that one. That one's one that's really confused me. As for the Sharks, their only real change is the inclusion of Braden Hamlin-Uele, who replaces Fafita in the 17 shirt. Other than that, the Sharks are unchanged. I mean, I'm going straight off the bat. I'm going Sharks. It's just a case of what margin do I fancy. There's a lot about the Broncos lineup that confuses me. I don't know why you've got Isaac on the wing. If you're going to put anybody in the 14 shirt, I'd say that potentially the argument is better leveraged towards Tessie New. I think he's done a good job at fullback for the Broncos. I just think that Isako, despite the fact that he was dropped after a poor turn of form, I think if you're going to put him back in the squad, I think you'd let him try and earn back his one shirt. I don't have much confidence in the Isako Farnworth combination there. Potentially, I'd have swapped Stags and Farnworth around so that then you've got big man, little man, and that way it evens it out a little bit. You know, Corey Oates, great to see him back in a Broncos shirt because he's been very much asking the question of why am I not playing? There's a lot of questions to be asked of this Broncos lineup. I'm confused by Corey Picks in the 14. I'm even more confused by Jesse Arthurs in the 17. I mean, how are you going to use those two players? Are you going to come in, potentially swap? Is it that they worry that maybe Stags' fitness won't hold up and then they bring Arthurs in? Is it a case of they worry about Isako having another shocker and they put Arthurs in on the other wing? I'm absolutely, my mind is boggled by this one. As for the Sharks, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. From what I've seen out of the Sharks, it's been marginal levels of improvement. They're, well, more than marginal. You know, they've got 4 wins in their last 5, a 13-12 over the Dragons, 38-10 over the Titans, that 19-18 over the Panthers, and the 26-24 over the Cowboys. That would sway me towards believing that this would be a Sharks 1-12 win just based on those margins. But I'm going to say Sharks 13+. The Broncos, they've got 1 win in their last 4. Again, no real signs of improvement for the Broncos. Even with these changes, they lose to Vita Pangai Jr. He's an enforcer up the middle and he's good for a few penalties, but he's also part of what lights a bit of a fire under the Broncos' backsides and gets them going, even if now he's been told that he's essentially free to look elsewhere and could have a new team by the, foreseeable, the next few weeks even. So there's just a little bit too much tinkering for me for this Broncos lineup, and I'm going to go Sharks 13+. I'm going to say back the over on this one. And if I'm going to go any time, I'm going to say Nakora and Tracy. Those would be my 2 for an any time. I just think Nakora is going to maybe get the edge over playing in the 11. I believe that he lines up against Isako and Farnworth and that he'll just punch a hole there towards the edges. And as for Tracy, he's coming up against Stags and Oates. Again, Stags has a tendency to come in looking for too much work. Oates is going to be a little bit jumpy because everything that he does is going to be heavily scrutinised, so he's not going to want to let anyone get outside of him, and I believe that Connor Tracy will do that.
All right, so a couple of things. Lodge and Pangai have been now told that they're staying. If you want to take a screenshot of what Matthew looks like right now, just right there. That looks very good. Thank you, sir. Ben Eichen, that was essentially agenda item number 1. Kurt Capewell, 1B was telling Pangai and Lodge they're hanging around until at least the end of the year, if not more. So a backtrack there from the Broncos.
Okay.
Pags is a hook. Hetherington has played hook/roaming lock. Palacia second row. Arthur's the centre. Don't really know about that one. So Haas can play 80. So, okay, understandable. Lodge probably shouldn't play 80. Alex Glenn, I don't think is going to play 80. So there's Palacia. There's your Palacia. Hetherington, if he plays as a roaming lock, will put Flegler in as a lock or as a prop, while Lodge is off. And then potentially Flegler and Lodge interchange at the back end of the game. There's your Hetherington justification. Corey Pakes, if Jake Turpin can't play the 80 or if Walters wants to give Turpin a break in between, there's justification on its own. Plus he can play half and the Broncos halves are going down like flies. Arthur's, Not really sure about that, but the news did come out today that 4 players were injured on Sunday's fitness session. And that comes a month after the Broncos fired their strength and conditioning coach. So read into that what you will, because you're not trying to put them through a preseason workout in round 15/16. Kevin. Sharks 13 plus. I'm not going to give you a reason. It's just going to happen. I've got 5 try scorers. 4 of them are from the Sharks. 1 of them are from the Broncos. Let me just add my Sharks 13 plus into this multi. I premise this by saying this is a $201 multi. I will be throwing $10 on it. Whether you follow me or not, or whether you take any of these selections is up to you. The only Broncos try scorer I've got is Katoni Staggs, and that's because I believe he's up against Will Chambers. Staggs is too strong. Yes, it's his first game back from an ACL injury, plus a suspension, but he's had 4 weeks to get real fit. He's potentially back in game fitness, even if it's simulated fitness at training, up against Chambers, who has not at all looked like himself in recent times. I agree with your sentiment on Tracy. He was the first one I picked. The second one's Jessie Raymond. Too strong, too quick, comes up against Farnworth, who is elusive, who is strong and quick, but I think we'll get caught out by the shift. It'll be Herbie Farnworth and Corey Oates, or Farnworth and Azarko against a 4-on-2 that could very well have a Sean Johnson, a Will Kennedy out the back, a Teague Wilton, a COC for Talakai, or an Okora, to then go with Ramian and Mulatalo. I mean, yeah, Mulatalo very well could go over, but you're more often than not going to have Izarko hanging out wide. He doesn't jam in as much as your typical winger. Ramian goes over. Sean Johnson. Broncos can't defend to save themselves at the moment. Who's the man that you want jinking and jiving coming off just signing a contract with Warriors? It's Sean Johnson. He wants to prove that when he slides back in to New Zealand in 2022, he's going to be like the Johnson of old that they thought were going to take him to a premiership. And the roughie, which is why it's at $201, Toby. Big Tobes, the man bun, Toby Rudolph. It's an inexperienced 11, 12, 13. Yes, Payne Haas is a very good defender. Yes, Matt Lodge is a solid defender. In fact, they're all solid defenders. But Rudolph, for the last 4 weeks, to my excruciating super coach pain, combined has been about 1.5 meters away from scoring. I think this is the week that he goes over. He's due. He is so due. You still have Sharon Woods and Tolman there. You've got Hamlin Uele back on the bench. You've got Jack Williams on the bench. You've got Teague Wilton, and you've got Braden Trindle. To me, that means, because Talakai is starting, that there's going to be some more game time for Toby. I think he goes over early. But he's due for a try, and I'm going with him. So Rudolph, Johnson, Ramian, Tracy, Staggs, the only Brisbane try scorer I have. Sharks 13 plus pays 201. Thank you. Next.
Okay. Right. We'll get on to the next one then. It is our final game. Tigers versus the Rabbitohs, and the Tigers welcome back Adam Dewey. So a couple of former Rabbitohs in this lineup, with Dewey and Roberts occupying the centres. Mamalo keeps his wing spot. And that's it. Other than the change of McKaylee coming in, that's it change-wise for the Tigers. As for the Rabbitohs, very few changes as well. They are still going with the Mitchell, Johnson, Gagai, Graham, Milne setup. Benji Marshall is into the 14, Liam Knight into the 15, and then Burgess and Host are your succeeded 17. And Selly is in your 10 shirt. That's it. Those are your only changes for this game. The Rabbitohs are going to run amok here. I mean, I don't see it going any other way than that. The Rabbitohs in recent weeks have just fired red hot. You know, with the exception of that loss against the Panthers, they've just looked quality every single time. The Tigers, not so much. They're coming off the 66-16 loss against the Storm in their previous outing. Before that, a 40 points to 12 loss against the Eels. Yes, they managed to get an upset victory over the Panthers before that, but the Tigers are they're not there or thereabouts at the minute, and they just seem to be slacking and getting worse and worse. And I don't see that this week's going to be any different. Yes, I know that based on the history books, it's 18-14 in favour of the Rabbitohs and 26-24 in their last two meetings, respectively. But I don't see this one being tight at all. I don't see that the Tigers will be able to hold up the Rabbitohs, especially when you got Benji Marshall, who knows the inner workings of the Tigers setup, knows a lot of these players, has probably been a mentor to a lot of these players over time. But Benji, I reckon, could turn up and have an absolute field day here. Especially, he just seems to be getting better and better. Like the fact that he occupies a 14 shirt and people are already talking about what's Benji's options for next season just tells you how good he is. And I don't expect that it'll be any different when he gets injected into the game. I'm not going to say that he's going to score here. I'm definitely not going to back Dane Gagai. I've backed Dane Gagai and been stung way too many times for that to happen. I'm going to say Latrell. I'm going to back Latrell. I think that he grabs a try. I think if you're going to say try scorer on the other side for the Tigers, I reckon Dewey could be good for one. So I'm going to say Rabbitohs 13 plus, Latrell anytime, and Dewey anytime. Just for me, the Rabbitohs are going to be too big and too strong. And they're going to be, their line shifts are just absolutely sensational at the minute. I can't see that the Tigers on the edges are going to be able to counteract that, even with, Mamalo now occupying a great amount of space on that side.
He does. He maintains and takes a lot of space up. Not so much. The dude is also still 105 kilos, so here I am at 6'2" and maybe 85 kilos. So I really cannot talk here. I'm going to keep my analysis to under a minute here. So 33, 34, 35. Bunny's 13 plus. I do like your Dewey anytime try scorer. I'm not going to go that way, though. I will go with David Nofaluma. No, I'm going to go Kim Amalo, actually. And the reason why is I think he goes up against Alex Johnson. It's an obvious target. Johnson, not the greatest leaper, more of a finisher. I am going Johnson anytime try scorer as well. I do like your Latrell bet. I also like Dane Gagai. I'm not going to go that way, though. I'm going to say Campbell Graham. Wants to prove that he should be in there for Origin. Is not going to be in there for Origin, but wants to prove his reasoning. And you know what? Because he's at Leica against the team that ditched him, let's go for Benji as well. Benji Marshall, anytime try scorer. Campbell Graham, anytime try scorer. Ken Mamalo, anytime try scorer. Bunnies, 20 plus. Done.
Okay. Well, I think that'll wrap it there then. We've taken you through every single one of the games. We've given our tips, our predictions, and talked you through the teams as well. So all there is for us to do is sign off and thank you for joining us. And we will see you Monday for the Rugby League report.